Okay, hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about concurrency. Uh, it's a very initial session, and I'll be restricting to some of the basic discussions that is quite useful in concurrency domain. So, uh, what do you mean by concurrency? Basically, concurrent applications or concurrency, whatever. It's quite uh, related to the multi-threading. Basically, when multiple threads you spawn from your application, and each thread's doing its own job, and finally you get the output, right? So uh, the basic requirement in software development the concurrency was to utilize the resources. Basically, the either can be memory resource, it can be a CPU resource, uh, much more efficiently or effectively. Okay, so and to reduce the time taken by an application, or basically to make the application much more faster, scalable, high throughput, and all this, etc., etc. So today I'm going to talk about fundamentals of the concurrency aspects. What all aspects are the building blocks of concurrency. So the first thing in concurrency is the state of an object. Okay, it's very important to understand the state of an object when you are going to design or going to develop an application which will be accessed by multiple threads. So what do you mean by state of an object? In a very raw term, state of an object indicates the data that an object contains. Okay, at any point of time, object state is nothing but the data it contains at that point of time. Now it can be a instance variable, it can be a static variable, it can be the related objects which is present or which is being referred by our original object. So everything combinedly known as the state of that particular object. So it's very important in concurrency to maintain the state so that your application work the way you want. If you fail to do so, many bad things can happen. Many bad things can happen in your application. Your application may not work, or may work sometime but may not work in later point of time. So you cannot guarantee that your your application is 100% secure, right? So this is the state of an object, and it's very important. So the next thing is sharing the objects. So in a multi-threading, when you talk about state of an object, that means I'm working on an object and what is the current state of the object, and when I perform certain things depending on the state of an object, and once my performing certain things is done, I'm leaving the state, I'm leaving the object in a state the way I wanted it to be. So that, okay, let me give an example. Let's say one thread is executing one object's method, and inside that method I'm executing certain things. Okay, I'm doing some processing, and to do the processing, let's say I am depending on some in global variables of that class and then doing the operation. But let's say the global variables basically is getting changed by other threads also. So if my first task, my thread is not getting the right data, based on what I'm going to decide whether I have to proceed or not. I mean, if it is getting modified by other threads, then my decision, my checking will be wrong. Basically it's very random in nature. So the state of an object is very required. So sharing objects in multi-threading, sometime it is we are sharing our objects across multiple threads, right? It's very rare in an application, in modern application, that our object will be limited only to a certain a specific thread, and object will not be shared across all other threads. It's very rare. There are ways to do that. There are immutable in concepts in Java that we'll talk about later on in the session, which basically makes objects forces the object's state not to be changed once after creation. So but sharing object is required sometimes. So concurrency, one of the aspect in concurrency is sharing the objects, that you should take care. The third one's thread safety. Okay, what is thread safety? Thread safety means how your application or block of code is safe in multi-threaded environment. So whenever somebody asks you what is thread safety in concurrency perspective, the first thing that should come in your mind is how far my code, how much my code or application output is dependent on the timing or interleaving of multiple threads. More precisely, I can say a class or a method is said to be thread safe when its output will not depend on the timing or interleaving of multiple threads. Okay, so then only you can say your method or class is thread safe. There are ways to make a class thread safe that will come in later sessions, but I am just giving you the basic concepts that what role this term indicates in concurrency perspective. Okay, so state of object I have already explained. It's a state of an object means the data that it contains affects its visibility to the external world. Of course, if I change something in my object data, how it is visible, how it is prominent to the other external objects, so that they can work on it and they can proceed further. Okay, so object sharing, data sharing is also important, that we already talked about. Thread safety, what do you mean by thread safety? Is the same, that how much your code or method or class is thread safe in a multi-threaded environment. Thread safe means protecting the data in a controlled manner. Okay, how your object is protecting the shared data in a controlled manner to the outside other threads. A block of a code is said to be thread safe only when its output doesn't depend on the timing or interleaving of multiple threads when it is getting executed, right? So there are certain things that we can do, like let's say synchronization, that means the coordination among the threads. We can use synchronized keyword, that is Java's intrinsic locking mechanism. There are disadvantages of this, but for the timing you just think that synchronized also helps us to make our application thread safe. And there are explicit locking mechanism, there are custom synchronizers, and there are non-blocking algorithms as well, which is very much into focus in concurrency domain, research domain, where we can use atomic variables and non-blocking algorithms, which makes our application much more scalable. Okay, we'll talk about this in detail later on. For the timing, that's it for today. Thank you for watching.